Okay, so before I start this video, guys, I just want to say Swift uploaded a video today. It's 9 minutes. Jesse was in it. Pretty much like it was a good video. He had like Jesse on his knees begging Swift for money, you know, because Jesse wants money, and I guess Swift is paying Nick now to film for him part-time. So it was a good video. I recommend checking it out. But you can tell by the title of the video, I have another Mcjuggernuggets theory. Now, so what I mean by theory, I've done another theory before about his characters and stuff, and like my theory and that. And I was just laying in bed today and I came up with this theory. So I wrote stuff down. We're going year by year, you know, with things. So once I hit like 2019, 2020, I will admit I did get a bit lazy with things. But I did work hard. I have like literally 2.5 or 3.5 pages of stuff written down. So bear with me here. And yeah. You may be confused, but, you know, was it all a trip? Meaning, like, from drugs? Now, I just want to put a disclaimer. There's going to be mention of drugs in here and mental illness. I'm not trying to, you know, upset anyone by talking about this stuff or be disrespectful. Because me, myself, you know, I have some family members that do have mental illness and stuff. So, like, I'm not trying to, you know, make fun of it or diagnose anyone. This is just a theory that I came up with. I was just laying in bed today when I woke up, and it was just, I don't know, it randomly popped in my head. So it's just something I wanted to share with you guys, and it makes sense. Like, once you have it all broken down for you, it would make sense. But anyways, so yeah, I just want to put that disclaimer. And if that's something you don't like to hear about, like drugs and mental illness, feel free to click out. But please, if you could try and stay, that would be great. Just hear me out what I have to say. It's really not that bad. But anyway, so before 2014, Jesse had schizophrenia, but it just wasn't that bad. You know, because he had, you know, like his clones and everything. He had Sergeant Jackson, Tony Trivielli, right? I was in Trivielli, whatever the dude's name was. So it wasn't too bad. But then in 2014, when he got his brain injury, that made the schizophrenia worse. I actually did Google it. Actually, is a thing that could happen. So it made his schizophrenia worse, and it also caused him to get bipolar. And that's where Psycho Kid come from. Because Psycho Kid was his anger, you know. Because if you think about it, yes, you know, you could say, well, Kelly, there's 2 Psycho Kids before that in 2012 and 13, but they were just one video in 2012 and then one in 2013. So, and again, like I said, because his schizo wasn't too bad. But, so yeah, and Psycho Kid, you know, that was his anger. Because Psycho Kid, to me, really didn't start till, like, summer of 2014. So, from his brain injury, you know, he got that, and that anger, too. He had anger, and that anger manifested itself into a personality, which was Psycho Kid, you know. But basically, before we start, I just want to say everything that has happened from Psycho series to now has all been in Jesse's head, and it's all been, we all have been seeing it from Jesse's point of view, from Jesse's eyes, pretty much, you know, like through his eyes. So, anyways, in 2015, Psycho series starts to take off, you know, it starts to become a whole story and everything. So yeah, so it starts off, you know, Jesse, you know, the dad kicks out Jesse and he goes to Eagles Landing because of Jesse's anger issues. Like, he smashed the dad's trophies, you know. So he kicks out Jesse. Jesse stayed in Eagles Landing. You know. So pretty much throughout the whole Psycho series, the dad, he wasn't bad. He was just trying to help Jesse, but Jesse perceived it as dad being bad and trying to control him and hurt him. But in actuality, it wasn't the truth. Anyways. So yeah, that was April. He lived in Eagles Landing, you know. And then when Jeff destroyed Eagles Landing, he really didn't destroy Eagles Landing, but that's how Jesse perceived it. He, like, you know, told Jesse to go, and he was like getting rid of the tent, but he wasn't actually destroying it, if that makes sense. You know. And yeah, and Jesse kicked out because of anger issues, because he was off his meds he was on. You know, so that's why his anger got out of control. So yeah, and then we went there, things were, you know, okay. And he got back in the house and everything was good. But then in June, Jesse got his spleen injury, which he thought was just mono for a while. So I believe he didn't start getting pain meds for that until September of 2015. So that's when we started the pain meds. You know, and then he ended up unfortunately getting addicted to it. And that was about the same time too when Psycho started to get crazier and more intense with things. Let's see. So yeah. And also he got hooked on them, which also heightened his mental illnesses. So it made him worse. It made Psycho Kid more crazier, more angrier, and all that. So like the Haunted series in 2016, that was all in his head. That was just stuff happening in his head. It really wasn't real. You know, that was just stuff he heard. It was just hallucinating from the drugs and stuff and his mental illness. So, you know. And the Job series. Job series is him trying to get a job, you know, and stuff, but he couldn't because of his drug issues and his mental illness. But then by the time we got to the Farm series, he was able to hide it, you know, because he learned, like, okay, I have to hide it. So he was able to hide it for a while, but then they ended up finding out, and he got fired, but he just said he quit to make it not seem as bad. Yeah. And then after that, he got kicked out again for, you know, the drug abuse and everything. He was in a trailer. But anyways, and then when Jesse's locked in a tiny room, that tiny room represented a rehab facility. He was in a rehab and he was trying to get better, but he was mad at his dad. He blamed his dad for because the dad was trying to help him the whole time, but he thought the dad, you know, that's not how Jesse saw it. So he imagined himself killing his father, even though that really didn't happen. And then the Crisis series was him coming to terms with, like, he was detoxing, he was finally starting to come clean. So he realized, like, it wasn't real, this wasn't real, and everything that he thought was real. So that was him coming to grips with that. I know it may seem confusing, guys, but bear with me. It does make sense thinking about it this way. I'm not saying this is, like, what Jesse is going for, but it does make sense, you know. So and thing after that, you know, the whole thing, he was better. And then, you know, Brian wanted to do a documentary on Psycho series because, you know, just to do a documentary about the, you know, Jesse's mental illness and how it affected him the way it did. But yeah, he was good for a while until he had his surgery in September, and he got more pain meds for that, and he relapsed, and that's where the Halloween series, the collab series, Michael and Boogie, and Christmas series come from. Again, those are all hallucinations from Jesse being under drugs again. So pretty much with the Psycho series, why the dad was trying to keep Jesse from Uncle Larry's, because Uncle Larry was an alcoholic. You see him always drinking a Corona, so he's an alcoholic, and Psycho dad was trying to keep Jesse away from him so Larry would bring Jesse down with him. But Jesse saw it as that the dad hated Uncle Larry and stuff like that, you know. But anyway, so yeah. Now on to 2017. So that's when the Snap series started. Snap, where he, you know, schizophrenia really started to take off, and he, you know, went to see this new psychiatrist, Snap, the wizard. But he was actually a psychiatrist, but Jesse perceived him as some wizard guy to get help. And he tried to, but then at the end of that video, you remember when he slapped in the mirror one more time, he switched, another one came out, which was Isaac. So yeah, that was the other person now taking over to try and help things out here, try and help Jesse out. So when that happens, you know, things start to become okay for a little while. On all the Psycho series, BTS was just hallucinations again from Jesse, because the whole Psycho series is one big hallucination. Then, you know, things starts to get a bit crazy again, goes to LA, does all this crazy stuff. You know. Then he claims Psycho series 2 because the dad's trying to help him again, but he perceived it as the dad just being mean. You know, so anytime, that's why we, you know, you see Psycho series every now and then, because that's the dad trying to help Jesse cope. You know, not cope, but help him. And then, you know, he tries to off himself because he just can't take anymore, as his other personality, like, can't take anymore. Then he dyes his hair, pierces his ears, gets tats like this other, you know, character or personality of Jesse's, you know. Because it's like the, you know, personality of, like, his depressed side, being depressed with everything, you know. You know, and then he lost his pop-up, so he starts, you know, getting crazy again with drugs. He starts doing, like, heavier drugs, cocaine. So he ends up taking his mother hostage and really starts to spiral. Then eventually his therapist gets this personality to go away and gets Jesse to come back, which Jesse supposedly comes back, where it was just a whole the whole thing was just a big trick, you know. It was always Isaac, you know, and he started taking meds again, so he's good for, you know, a while again until the devil comes out, which this part might seem confusing, but the devil is actually new meds Jesse takes, these stronger meds, because the devil, you know, ends up killing off his other characters. You know, which what meds do is, you know, they block out the other characters, so, you know, your other personalities, or it's just you. So that's what the devil is. It's like stronger medication Jesse started to take, and all that. And if you remember in the video when Jesse was the mirror man the whole time, and it showed in that video when the devil died that Jesse showed, oh, I'm gonna disappear for you, because, you know, everyone thought that Jesse was back, but it was really Isaac this whole time. So the real Jesse disappeared on these new meds, so it was Isaac. And that's where MVE comes in. It was just hallucination. He starts, you know, doing weed and stuff, you know, smoking weed. And then, if you remember those XP, that actually is crystal meth. Because what's crystal? Crystal is a type of rock. So that's actually crystal meth. He starts doing meth. Fucking phone. Sorry, guys. Anyways, so yeah, he starts doing meth. And if you remember to an MVE, you never seen anyone really eating those XP things, you know. Maybe like a few times you've seen, but it was mostly always Isaac, aka Jesse. So he started doing that, and then MVE ends where he finally realizes to give up drugs, and he starts to get better, and he goes back into Jesse. So that's that. Right. Yeah, so that, so we get to 2018, things are good after, you know, MVE gets back to normal again. But then he does, gets kicked out again, or gets back on drugs again and gets kicked out. If you remember that with him and Dom getting kicked out. And when he came back, he signed a deal with Psycho Dad, that contract that he would stay, get clean and everything. If he's not by a certain date, then he would get kicked out. So he gets clean and he decides to get his own place, which he does. And things start to look up and stuff for him. Also, yeah, before I mentioned too, he gets back on drugs and gets kicked out because, you know, him and Juliet breaks up because she can't take all this craziness with him anymore. Where were we? So now we're on to 2019. He stays clean, moved into the house, but, you know, he ends up getting put on different meds again, which that's when the devil comes back again, and everything. So he's there with his meds then after he gets put on those different meds. You know, he stole that, you know, that bag of money, and then the mafia comes after him because he stole it for drug money and stuff. And then he ends up getting a girlfriend. Actually, we get more into her at the end about like her role and what she means and everything. Then, you know, he starts getting paranoid that people are watching him, like, you know, cause apparently it's YouTube, but, you know, thinks he's being listened to and stuff because of him doing drugs again. So he starts to get paranoid. Then he gets, you know, kind of calm again. You know, and he's still on drugs and alcohol, but he leaves YouTube, which we're in 2020 now. So he leaves YouTube for a while. He comes back. Then, you know, when quarantine comes, he starts getting worse again with the drinking and the drugs. Then he ends up getting a dog. I know things are getting crazy, guys. You may be getting confused. You know, I'm just kind of telling you kind of where his videos have been going. But, you know, and then he starts doing his competition video because he feels bad for the people who he wronged. So he tries to help them back by having these competitions so they can win money. Then, you know, he ends up breaking up with Ashley, and then he spirals. You know, because we'll get more into that, but yeah. He ends up getting a lake house to, like, try and help himself cope. Then him and Ashley get back together. Now we're in 2021 this year. You know, he's starting to hit rock bottom, losing all his money from the drugs and stuff. You know. So he has to sell his PA house, and this is where we're at now with all his money issues. So with Ashley's parents, they're actually dealers Jesse found. And as you know, they're selling their house now because, you know, they are dealers. Oh, they lost all their money from doing drugs. And Ashley was their daughter that Jesse's seen pictures of around their house who passed away because they owed money to people, her parents, and the people who owed money who came after them and shot the house, and Ashley got shot and died. So Jesse saw pictures and uses Ashley to cope. So Ashley's not a real person. She's actually a spirit, and that's why Nick told them before how their relationship is a lie, because she's not real. It's someone Jesse manifested to help him cope. So this is where we are now. You know, same with like the series with the key that he's doing. You know, with the box, that's all this hallucinations and stuff. I mean, think about it. It makes sense, you know, the rock candy, the pain pills. Like, it kind of makes sense when you think about it. It is also kind of far-fetched, but I don't know. Something that just seems crazy to me. But yeah, this is Jesse. That's my theory about Jesse, about his videos. It does kind of make sense, like, with everything. But I feel like once we get in 2019 and, like, 2020 and now, it kind of gets a little bit mucky. But it still kind of makes sense. That's just my theory on things. I thought it was an interesting thing. Things towards the end of it, like I said, 2019, 2020, start to get a little bit mucky with things. But to me, it makes sense. I'm not saying this is what Jesse tried to do, but you can play it off as that. It would be kind of a cool theory, you know, because, like I said, it makes sense. Like certain things, if you really think about it. But yeah. So again, I'm not saying this is real. You know, Jesse doesn't have any mental illness or is an addict, but this is just maybe like what he's trying. I'm just saying, it's just a theory about things, you know. I don't know. But yeah, what do you guys think? Don't you think, now think about that, kind of, it makes sense? Like, some other things make sense. Others may be a bit of a stretch. But I don't know. I think for the most part, it's an interesting thing to think about. Especially when you put it all together on a timetable. Like, it makes sense. You know, because that's how it is a lot of times. It's like a roller coaster when you're an addict, you know. You do well for a while, then things get worse, and, like, sometimes you relapse a few times. You know, but who knows? I don't know. And also the Jesse Tyler character is, like, his smart side. And that's another personality he has, and he made his own channel, Jesse Tyler Ridgeway, for finance videos and stuff. We also had Simon, which is from his Everyday Situation series, and he was, what's his character named Curtis? I don't know. Simon and Curtis, which is him and Corinne. Anyways, kind of like, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about. Like, it's just something that randomly popped in my head, and it makes sense. A lot of the things do make sense, but you know, I don't know. The schizophrenia theory does make sense in a way, because all his different characters like could be different personalities of his. Because they're like, Isaac's is the depressed side, the Devil's like kind of the evil side. Psycho Kid's is like, you know, what, mean side you can say, or angry side. Isaac's like a sad or like depressed side, you know what I mean? So schizophrenia theory does kind of work with Jesse. Then you have Sergeant Jackson, you have Tony Trevorelli, which is his funny side. Sergeant Jackson's like his tough side. And then Jesse Tyler is like his, you know, smart side, you know, his intellectual side. So, like, it makes sense, you know, probably, that one makes sense more than probably the drug one, but the drug one does kind of work with it. But anyways, that's my thoughts. Please check out Swift's video. Jesse should be uploading today, too, so stay tuned for that. But follow me on all my socials. Follow Colin on Insta, subscribe to Josh, subscribe to Ridgemay, #AGP, subscribe to Always_Juggy. Subscribe to Colin. Please subscribe to me, guys. Please like. Please comment. And yeah, I love you randomers so much. Let me know what type of videos you want to see. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.